Welcome back. The Technology Modernization Fund could get a $9 billion boost in the next coronavirus relief bill. A surge in IT modernization spending could change the way the government approaches digital transformation. Mike Hettinger is president of the Hettinger Strategy Group. Rich Beutel is principal at Cyrrus Analytics. Gentlemen, welcome. It is good to see you again. Rich, this is like a nirvana moment probably for you guys. At the very beginnings of this, I don't think anybody envisioned a possibility even of a $9 billion influx at some point in time. What does that look like on the back end in your view? What does this look like 6 or 8 months or a year out after this kind of a cash influx, if it happens?
Well, I think it could be transformative. I think that it could provide the true philosophy and purpose of the Technology Modernization Fund, which is to serve as seed corn and to start a virtuous cycle of innovation within government to address these tremendous challenges of IT modernization, particularly as accelerated by the COVID crisis.
Mike, David Shive, a member of the TMF board, was on the program on Sunday talking about what would happen mechanically if there's this influx. I counted up before that conversation, there's about 80 million that they have let so far that they're managing now through the fund. What's that, like almost 100 times scale look like in your view? What has to happen to get from here to there?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, we want to make sure that we push as hard as we can to get the money, right? And that's certainly not a done deal. But mechanically, I think, there are about 500 million worth of projects that have been presented to the TMF board previously. So there's a list. Agencies have a priority list. You can look at the GAO high risk list to identify some other areas where we could potentially find some projects that should go through this process. And then obviously with solar winds and some of the remediation we think is going to be needed, going to need to be done on the cyber front, I think there'll be plenty of projects that can go through the process. TMF might have to loosen its reins a little bit, figure out how they can move projects quicker through the board process and all of that. But we can work through that.
Mike, you said we got to get the money first, which is an astute observation. What has to happen to make that happen? And what do you think the odds are at this point? I mean, maybe not handicapping it, but is that something that is likely, possible, almost a lock at this point? Where is it on that spectrum?
Just like we've talked about before, it's really contingent, I think, on a couple of things. But the ability to get the larger package done is certainly one of those things. You're hearing a lot of reports now about budget reconciliation and smaller packages being proposed by some folks over in the Senate. So, I think what we're hearing is the House bill, when it comes out, which may be relatively soon, will probably include all or some of the TMF money. And remember, there's money in there for GSA and for OMB and CISA as well. So we'll see what the whole package looks like. I'm not as confident that the Senate bill will include any money, and then we can kind of negotiate from there, hopefully.
Rich, the landscape of this, what Mike is talking about there is machinations on the Hill. What I don't hear anybody, neither of you nor anybody else who's talking about this, discussing is the need for the agencies to demonstrate they have the need or they have the ability to execute the projects. Is that pretty much a done deal at this point? Do you think there's, even if people don't agree the money's necessary, is there agreement that the agencies have these projects that need work?
Yeah, I mean, remember, it's a mature process going back to the OMB memorandum on February 27 of 2018. And there's a whole website devoted to specific approaches, templates, and requirements, and a very mature process of review and evaluation. So the implementation of this process, aside from Mike's comment about loosening the reins, is pretty well established. And agencies are required by the review criteria to bake cybersecurity into every facet of their proposals.
Do you see a marker here, Rich, because President Biden has said we need this money, House leadership has said we need this money, if the Senate doesn't come along, and maybe it's not $9 billion in the stimulus bill, maybe it's 1 or 2 or whatever the number may be, is this at least a marker that we're not going to be talking in the 125 million neighborhood that we've been in for the last couple of years anymore? Do you think, Rich, this portends a future, a bigger future for the TMF in some form or another?
I hope so, because I think it was a great idea, and particularly when combined with the working capital fund concept, which gets very little discussion. Many CIOs we've talked to, including one just last week, said they wouldn't use TMF because they thought that the payback requirement would hand tie them on in terms of future direction and future procurements and the like. And so that's clearly an area that needs to be addressed.
Mike, we have about a minute left, and Rich makes a good point. When you originally started coming on this program and talking about this legislation years ago, there were two pieces. One was TMF, and the other was the working capital funds at the agencies. They became combined, and we don't hear much about the working capital funds anymore. Is that an issue, Mike, that you think agencies should jumpstart, or are they, and we're just not hearing about it?
Well, there's been some effort through the normal appropriation process, and I can't remember the specific agencies that asked for authority to set up those working capital funds. But I think right now, as we're thinking about the $9 billion for TMF, that's really the focus. And Rich mentioned, they're kind of built on my point. The payback requirement's been an issue, and I think it was really encouraging to see when the Biden administration proposed this. They also proposed loosening those reins. And so some of the money won't have to be paid back. The revolving nature of the fund continues to be something I think that's important, but we've got to figure out how that works. And in this emergency situation, when we've got cyber needs and customer experience needs and a whole host of other things, we need to make sure the agencies want to get that money and we can get it out to them.
Mike, Rich, thanks very much for coming on. It's great to have you.
Of course. Thank you, Francis.
Thanks.